the most common questions we get at Women is, how can I get involved and what can I do? How do I become a champion at Women and lead this change that we're all looking for? And Faith's been a stellar example in showing how by taking action, and even when something doesn't really exist, how you can start it from zero. So Faith, I'm gonna hand over to you so you can share your story on what's been your journey with women, when has it started, what has been your biggest takeaways from this experience, and what can everybody else on this call learn from your experience in terms of becoming a diversity and inclusion champions?
Hi, everyone. It's good to hear from you today as well and be able to talk to you guys and share my experiences with Women's Global and now Women's Malawi. I think my journey started in 2016, but probably started earlier than that. Maybe some of the students don't know this. When I got into university, I was very clueless about engineering. And college life, I was coming from a background where, in high school, you were forced to go to prep time. And you didn't necessarily have to put an effort in every subject to get to the next year. So I went into my first year with a very lazy nature. And so I would only pick the subjects I wanted to study. And I was so clueless. And then I ended up having to retake that year. It was a very difficult conversation I had with my parents, and and having to say, you weren't meant to repeat that class. But then after having to repeat, and seeing the number of girls that actually had dropped out because of failing their grades, I started asking myself, why did that happen? And then I started looking towards the female engineering students that were in higher classes and wondering why there was never a connection between the younger female engineering students and the older ones. And so that question kept on ringing in my head. And I think from first year, after I successfully passed with really good grades first year again, I made it a mission to make sure that I mentored people that were struggling in the lower classes. And I remember in second year, a group of us decided with some of my male classmates and female classmates as well. I think it was a very balanced leadership team. At the time, there wasn't a civil engineering chapter on campus. We had MIE, but then most of the times the leaders were mechanical engineering students. And so civil engineering students didn't have that chance to do practical work outside of school. They'd usually go to the Sobo factories, that is like the orange squash factories, which was more in line with mechanical engineering students. So we decided we're gonna start something for civil engineering students. And we worked towards that during the holidays. We came up with a constitution. We asked our head of department for a patron. And then we started Association of Civil Engineering Students. That was in my third year. And it actually successfully went well because we managed to, through the Blantyre Water Board, to be able to go to the main water supply in Malawi at Walker's Ferry. And all the students that were able to come with us on that trip were able to see the entire process from the collection point of the water from the Big Share River to the point where it's now going to distribution. And so since then, and I knew that, okay, this is something big, there is an impact that can be made. And then in 2016, I remember when it was presented to me by my father that, there is this opportunity to attend the Emerging Engineering Leadership Program, where Susan and Teresa at the time were being funded by the MIE to go. I was like, okay, never been to South Africa. This is just a fun trip. I didn't think much into it. But I think, I'm gonna say this to Nadia, you have a way of convincing people, of igniting something in somebody that you cannot stop. I think once you attend a women's, there's something about attending a women's program. And I can see the same with you, the growth. I remember in 2018 when you came to do the verses, when you did the EELP in 2018, I was like, Aditi has changed. Over time, there's something about the women's programs that do have an impact. And I think since then, even though the EAP was for the middle management for female engineers between 28 and 40, it had an impact for me. I think I was more confident, more pronounced in the way that I expressed myself. The many times I did do the Obama pause in the mirror so many times. I remember practicing every single time I was about to do something. But then it showed me that there was something bigger, that there was a bigger story. The women needed to come to Malawi. And when we sat down with Teresa and Susan, and with Hema and Nadia on the last morning before we flew back to Malawi, it was a mission that we needed to bring women to Malawi. And we spent time, I remember having to rush out of class just to attend the meetings with Susan and Teresa in Teresa's office at the time when she was the Dean of Engineering, and leaving there around 7 or 8 and having to go back to study and having to go back to catch up with everybody. But I made it a mission that I was going to do this. And eventually we did. In 2017, we had our first leadership training. And what it also did when I showed my level of passion and motivation to work hard, it opened me up to, it opened Teresa and Susan as well to allow me to attend certain functions that where people at my age did not have the opportunity to. I remember when the former astronaut Leland Melvin came with the educational department from Washington, D.C., from the White House. And they came and they were doing a tour in Malawi. I think they did one at Must and also one at Polytechnic, just talking about educational tools that can be useful for young kids, like building a small rocket and things like that. And that would be pivotal as well to Women's Malawi's and the women's chapter's growth in terms of STEM education. And I remember being in that room at Ryo's Hotel and realizing that I was the youngest in the room, and the rest were, vice chancellors and deans and heads of departments. And I was thinking, how did I get here? But then being reminded that there's a reason why I was there, and that as small as I felt, there must be something bigger that must be a little clue about where I'm going in the future. And so that was very motivating. And so I kept on going. And eventually, what most people don't know is that Women was launched during Grace Week, the week before my last exams at the Polytechnic. And having to get out of class and go back to class, that was very preparing for it. It wasn't an easy thing. And for most of my lecturers who are never used to me missing classes and having to justify that was very difficult. So the only way I had to justify that was through my assignments and the examinations, showing that I was passing really well. And so we did the launch with Hema, the Girl Lunch program. And then the same day, actually the next day morning, I had to leave. So I didn't do the launch at the SAFEO MIA conference, which I was sad because, it's like you put into the work and then you see newspapers, you see people, and they're taking all these pictures, they have launched Women, and you realize, but then you were behind the work as well. But then it was something I had to let go and say, okay, no, but I have to get my degree. So luckily enough, and funny enough, I was doing one of the hardest projects. I was doing traffic study of a roundabout with a link connecting to traffic lights intersection. So I spent about 2 months. Actually, the month that we went to Women for the ELP, that was the month after that. That month and the next, I was collecting data for my project well in advance for my final year. I have to thank heavens because I really didn't realize that collecting data in advance before every other classmate of mine had given out their thesis title was actually going to be helpful for me. So it was a very funny thing where I did the opposite. I collected my data before I had a topic, but my supervisor was very kind to help me along the journey. And when I look back, being able to get 7 distinctions out of 12 subjects and 4 credits, well, I almost didn't get my overall distinction degree, but then looking at the work that I was able to do, and I was very proud of that work, and also realizing that it was a beginning of an impact. I mean, it would be very funny if I failed and I'm talking about engineering, or if I got a pass in my degree, I'm talking about working hard in engineering and I did not live up to the standard of that. And so since that was 2017, and then 2018, that's when Catalyst began. But then I think for me, Catalyst was really wonderful because, and ELP, because I connected with, I think, was it Laura? I've just forgotten her name, and Colossa. And we've been in contact since. And actually been talking about her Colossa's professional certification with, is it your South African engineering professional body as well? And her journey to starting her consulting engineering firm, and me working for a consulting engineering firm in Malawi. And then at the commencement meeting, and me and Diana from Tanzania hit it off. And we have been talking as well since she also has a company in Tanzania, and I made my first visit to her last year in December. So it really has been an interesting women's journey. And now Kezia and me are good friends since she's now under the ADDA. So women's journey has been really eye-opening. And then now, something I've never done before, writing grants, preparing for grants and proposals for funding. And obviously also being in the confidence level allows you to be in rooms that you would not have been if you were fearful. I think women also removes the fake timidity that comes with the African culture, where young people have to ascribe to older people, not necessarily in a very condescending, a rude way, but then it gives you the confidence to allow them to bring you into a space that otherwise they wouldn't have, because that confidence gives you the strength to know that what you're talking about is facts. You're an engineer, you're factual, and you have wisdom. And I think the beauty about engineering that most people don't understand, which has also been helpful for me in terms of helping run my father's company, David Consulting Engineers Limited, as the technical director. There are times where we have joint venture projects with international firms. I think there was one from Ireland, and I think there's one, was it from Italy and Mozambique? And I think having to be the balance between my father and them has been quite interesting. I remember we had one of the resident engineers, he was actually South African, but he was working for the Irish company. And he would knock at my office, he'd be like, Faith, your father is not getting me. can you talk to him? And then it's same both ways. So it's been a really good mediator, because in as much as, that level of exposure in a global context, of course, he was a senior engineer in his 70s, but then it was quite interesting how I still related with him, and we were able to do our work well. Funny enough, I did actually get offered a job from our joint venture company, but I decided not to go, the Irish company. They had a road project in Zambia, and I said I had to stay because I had to help run the company here. But that was very funny how the other team poaches you to join their team. But then I knew that, okay, I've really changed over time. I have definitely changed from who I was. Yeah. So pretty much.
And it shows the journey, right? Is that especially when you started at university, the thought of having to start something on top of your studies as well is giving you that extra drive moving forward post your studies as well, and to see the continuation of what we're doing at Womenj, and as I said, starting from zero, right? So thank you, Faith, for sharing your story with us, and I think that inspires. I see a comment from Nadia, and I see a comment from Miriam as well. So Miriam has been following our network, I know, for a while, and it sets a great tone for how our new champions can come on board and take the initiative and do without specific guidelines, so to say, in what works in each country. So thank you for that, Faith.
Yeah.
Great.
I would have to add.
Yeah.
I'd have to add for the young people. I think it's very easy to see from your viewpoint of view to point problems out from senior members, but it's also a different thing to walk in their shoes. I think it takes time sometimes as young people to understand the struggles that they have been through, because you might see and all you see is problems and what needs to be fixed, but then there is wisdom in those number of years that it takes them. And I'm sure Nadia and Hema can say the same from their young volunteers, that it does take, there is a lot of wisdom and, into that work. And so there should also be a level of respect for those that are ahead of us.